Zoe coming in now. Wow, brilliant. Honestly, I can't even tell you what an uplift just seeing you all here this afternoon is absolutely fantastic. Welcome, happy Monday, happy new year, although I think it's probably, we're getting to a point now where it's potentially too late to say that, or are we all counting down for 2022? I'm not quite sure. I really hope you and yours are well and safe. I know this is even more challenging than we met last time, but I hope you're all keeping really well. But like I say, it is fantastic to see you. It really is great to see so many of you here today. Hopefully, you will have all had at least one interaction with your mentor or mentee. If not, then please give Em a shout. So let's give give us a wave. There she is. Fabulous, Emma Mason. Not in orange, sorry, Andrea. For those of you who don't know Andrea Edwards is obsessed with orange. So thank you, Debbie, for getting in the dress code. Yeah, we're partway through, aren't we, our virtual mentoring. And I have to say, when we came off the last call, I had a big kind of big deep breath, because a bit like now, seeing so many of you that have all given you time, giving you energy, giving your expertise, giving you ears to, you know, to just pay it forward and connect with each other is really uplifting. And I think the decision to sort of create this environment was exactly for that, to make sure that nobody feels as though that they're on their own or they haven't got someone to speak to. So I think this is testament to this fantastic Northern Power Women community, testament to all of you for making time today for each other and for coming together. And today I'm really chuffed to be joined by the wonderful Debbie Francis OBE. As of only a week, isn't it? It's only, what are we, Debs? Only a week or so. Do I need to unmute you?
I can unmute me.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, 31st of December.
And how's that imposter syndrome kicking in for you?
Pretty full on.
And we've kept it in this format as well as in the webinar with this as opposed to a webinar function, because actually I just think, whilst it can be a bit tricky to navigate the muting and unmuting and that, if I ask everyone if they could go on mute when we start chatting with Debbie, but the reason I just think it's good for all of you to see each other and equally for Debbie to see you as well. So that's the reason I've chosen to keep it in this meeting format as opposed to webinar as well, just to make it a bit more lively and engaged. And I'm conscious of keep your videos on if you can. If you're also multitasking and homeschooling at the same time, which I appreciate some of you maybe, then I totally understand. But thank you for joining the conversation today. Debbie, your if I remember rightly, your Twitter handle, is it Debbie Gets Fit?
Yeah. It's been around a long time for various reasons, and I do keep having people tell me I should change it to something more professional, but it works for me, so I'm leaving it.
Yeah, and who says, you know, there's no rule book with that. Well, we're going to have a conversation with you in a second, but again, just wanted to say a big thank you for all of you for joining us today. And yeah, just please join the conversation on social media as well. I'm going to do, well, I can, because if I don't do it now, I'll forget the end. I'm going to do a couple, because we've got 4 pages of screenshots. So I'm going to do it page by page. You're going to have to smile 4 times, but it's all good. Everyone smile or give me a wave. That's number 1. 4 pages, isn't that ace? Hold on a second, that's it. Keep waving and looking a bit crazy. It's all good. Gemma, you particularly. Sorry, I'll do that again. Nearly there. Right, page 3. Your many screens, but it's all good. Gosh, I'm very quiet. Brilliant. Now we want this to be as interactive as possible. I'm going to bring Debbie in a second. But if you've got any questions or anything that you want to add, please add it into the chat box at the bottom, okay? We're going to be here for an hour, so I hope you've got a brew or you're having your lunch as we go, but thank you so much. I am delighted. I've known Debbie for a few years, and before I'd met Debbie, so many people have said to me, you have to meet this woman. She's absolutely amazing. Not only is she an accomplished leader in business, but she's a little bit crazy, and she's this ultimate adventurer and has done all this kind of stuff. And you'd done, I think it was at that time or not long after, you'd done was it the Clipper race, Debs? Is that what it was? And I just thought I loved everyone that can try and fit so many different adventures in alongside your career. So thank you so much for joining us. So please tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay, so well, hi, and it's just great to see everybody, and it's always interesting, isn't it, on Zoom, because everyone's got a different screen that they're looking at, so nobody really knows who's on what bit of the screen. Anyway, I've got obviously one screen that I can see, so it's nice to see everybody that I can see, with some fellow coloured people in the audience as well. Karen, I'm looking at you, yeah, and Andrew's all happy about it. It's all good. A little bit about me. Nowhere near as impressive as Simone's just said, but then I am definitely suffering from imposter syndrome at this point in time. We might talk a bit about that later, but a little bit about me. So you'll never guess, but I'm originally from Liverpool, and I know you can't tell at all, a bit like Simone, really, you can't tell. I left school a long time ago. So I left school at 16, and I left with no qualifications, really. I had 2 O-levels. I messed up the rest of it. I went on a youth opportunities programme, which anybody who is about my age will know and remember, but for most people on this call, it's probably a little bit before your time. But it was the first ever government job creation scheme, and it was this thing, you got 6 months work experience, you got 25 quid a week for it, and I went on that at 16, and it was awful. I was working for the Inland Revenue and basically was filing bits of paper all day. So it didn't take me very long to realise I'd made a bit of a mistake. And then for the next 5 years, I worked. I did get a job from it. So from that point of view, the government's plan worked. I did actually get a job, and it was a massively. I don't think this country has ever had such high unemployment as that year in 1982, per head. So I did actually find a job, so it worked from that point of view. But I work now for the next 5 years. I went to night school for 5 years. I got enough qualifications to get me into Liverpool Polytechnic to do a degree. And I'd found, as part of those qualifications, I quite like finance. So I seem to be able to understand debits and credits and things. So I decided, when I did business studies and I focused in the final year on finance, left and managed to get a contract to train as an accountant. It was really hard to do, actually, because back then, to train as an accountant, you really did need to be have A-levels and things. But I had one company that took me on. We were a big company at the time. They were in what was the top 10. I think we're down to about 4 now, but it was a top 10 back then. They took me on to the trading partner saw something in me, and basically my career took off from there. I stayed in finance for a long time. I was fortunate to eventually go and work for an American corporation, and the Americans didn't recognize my accent. When they met me, I was working in Aberdeen, so they introduced me to everybody as Scottish. You can imagine how that pissed the Scottish off. So they introduced me as Debbie from Scotland. So they didn't recognize the Scouse, which, to be fair, had been a problem up to that point. It had a reputation that went with it. It had a persona that went with it that worked against you. Top of that, of course, I was a woman, etc. So I went to work for an American corporation, and I suppose I got my big break there, because they didn't care about the gender side. They only care about how hard you worked. They didn't understand, the accents or any of the stigma that might come along with coming from certain parts of the country back at that time. And I had a great time, and I worked overseas with them. I went to Venezuela for a couple of years. I went to America for a year, and then I came home, and my career really, really developed following that. Until eventually, like most good, I become a finance director, but like not most, but like a lot of finance directors, I wanted to be a managing director or a chief exec. And I got an opportunity, and I became managing director of a rail freight company in Cumbria. There's only 5 rail freight companies in this country. They're the sort of 4th, I don't know whether you call them, they're the 2nd smallest or the 4th biggest, depending on how you want to view your glass. I'll call them the 4th biggest out of 5. And they're actually a government-owned organisation. So it did but they do a lot of commercial work. So it certainly came with its challenges. So I did that. And then last year, and like many of you may have been facing similar problems. So I finally, after all of this time in my career, decided to jack it in and start my own business. And I decided to start my business in training senior managers and leaders in women's empowerment and women in women's empowerment issues. And I was looking very specifically at things like business skills that you get taught generically as a woman, things like negotiating. But actually, if you go on one of those negotiating courses, you know, the skills and the way they teach them, we don't feel completely comfortable with them in terms of, so it doesn't mean we're bad negotiators, it's just that's not the way that we should be doing it, that would work for us. So it was to look at all of that. And I actually launched, I quit my job. I had a 12-month notice period, so that was purgatory. I quit my job. I didn't start thinking about my notice until 6 months in, obviously, because I only had 6 months left. I launched the company, interestingly, you were talking about International Women's Day, in March last year, at International Women's Weekend at the Womanide Fest in Manchester. I did a session on imposter syndrome. I took a stand. I had everything there. In a week later, we went into lockdown. My business was not to be. So I had a bit of a head in hands moment, because I couldn't believe I got all the way through this career, this amazing career, you know, all great, give it all up, go into business, finally plucked up the courage. And it did, you know, I'd always been scared of it. So I finally plucked up the courage, and then the virus happened. But I've been very fortunate. So I have landed another job. I've got a portfolio career as well as a good job with Arcadis. Finally getting a chance to maybe influence the Northern agenda a bit, which I've been really passionate about for a long time, and particularly around transport, sustainability, and the levelling up. And that's where I am now. So sorry that was a bit of a long thing, but it's generally worth knowing how I got to where I got to and how I came. So I hope that's helpful info for everyone.
And I think everyone's got a different phrase for that, you know, whether it be, I think Alex has jumped on saying, you know, she was a YTS. It was all different. They all had different banners, didn't they? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, the youth training scheme came after the Youth Opportunities Programme. They only ran the yacht for about a year, and then realised actually, although it was fine in some ways, it didn't really teach you anything. So they brought in the youth training scheme instead, which at least gave a little bit of an obligation on employers to train you as well as just use you as very cheap labour. Only a little bit, but so the YTS was the next one up, and it was all through that period, through the latter Thatcher years and the really high unemployment and difficulties the country faced. So yeah, there'll be a few people out there who wear, I think.
Yeah, I think my first member of staff, a young woman called Steph, I was working at Aintree Race Course, and she came to me. I was like, I really need some support. And I found Steph, I think through the Gyro Bank, what is now Santander, and you know, and she started with me working. You know, she was on a day release, I think, is what that was called at the time, and it was brilliant. And she's now up at the new arena in Liverpool as the national sales manager there. So you know, you just never know your journey. And one of the reasons I wanted you to be part of this call today is, one, you know, I'm really passionate about this group that have come together today. I'm really passionate about, you know, what drives people to mentor and ask for a mentor. But you've had such a varied journey, but what has been the impact of mentors to you throughout your kind of varied career?
Well, it's interesting because mentoring to a great extent has become, it is a more modern thing. It's kind of the last 10, 15 years or so. And it may have existed in other forms and places I wasn't aware of before, but it really is a more modern thing, and it is brilliant. And I would say, and it's anecdotal, but it feels like it's something that really has been developed and brought on by women, actually, because we've seen more of that need to support each other. We feel easier opening up to each other, and we tend to be, and this is a generalist, so it doesn't apply across the board to all men or all women, but I think that we're certainly more self-critical and therefore always looking for other people to help us think through ideas and things. We don't tend to have the same confidence purely in our own thinking, which is great. Actually, it's great. It's good that we look around. So for me, up until 10 years ago, I've never had a mentor, and I had to just to fight through everything, you know, fight through being a woman, fight through being a Scouser, fight through trying to figure out what I wanted to do as a career, and not even having gone through traditional program, you know, of O levels followed by A levels followed by university, etc., where you at least begin to build ideas as you go. It was very, very different. But about 10 years ago, it was pretty much as I started in the rail industry, I kind of got my first mentor, and it wasn't formal. It's somebody I certainly recognise today as somebody who was a mentor then, and who I still class now as a friend and a mentor. And it was a lady, some of you from rail will know a lady called Diane Crowther, she's the chief exec of HS1 now, but she was the route managing director when I went to Network Rail and was very focused on supporting women going forward. And I'd never come across anybody like Diane. I'd never come, even though I went in as the finance director for the route, I was in quite a senior position. I'd still only ever worked in mail industries, and I'd never come across an industry or a manager who was that focused on supporting her colleagues, be they men or women. And she did become, you know, kind of, I suppose, an informal mentor for me. And then since then, in the last 10 years, through the rail industry, I mean, I have met so many women who are so prepared to give their time. I've made so many great contacts that I feel I can contact somebody, mail people, phone them to say, have you got any thoughts? What can I do? And there's so many groups established and stuff that now I feel completely supported, and I have far less issues with my confidence and stuff now, because women do support each other. They are ready to pat you on the back, even if you've not been perfect. You know, they're ready to pat you on the back. They're ready to say good job. And you know, if you get told that enough, there's a bit of you starts to believe it. So it works, and it's good. So my, you know, the impact in the last 10 years, and my career has taken off in the last 10 years. You know, I was doing okay, but it is genuinely taken off. And I can only put that down to those women around me who have helped, supported, put me forward for things, and been there to give me advice, or just to have a good glass or something to have, and that's to do stuff. And that is all mentoring at the end of the day.
And I always think, you know, mentoring is about being the best version of yourself. It's not about being the best rail professional or sailor or whatever that may be. I think it is being, and it comes, I think sometimes we talk about confidence so much, don't we? You know, but actually sometimes it's trying to shake off that imposter syndrome bit, isn't it? And going, you know what, you got this, whatever it is, you got it, you know? So, but you talked about that whole, you know, women will, you know, very likely come forward to be mentioned. We've got, obviously, we're always open and welcome of all genders, all sectors, all backgrounds, you know, because I'm a firm believer that everybody can do something for someone else, you know, everyone can do something. So why is it important to pay it forward at whatever level? Because bearing in mind here today, we've got mentors and mentees, all different levels, but why is it so important?
It's paying it forward is the answer, right? There are some people who will be on this call like myself who felt so alone for so long, who felt like we had to work twice as hard, be better, you know, and trying to be better than everybody around you. It's like, it's impossible. You know, there's always people better at this or better at that. So that shouldn't be the norm. That shouldn't be what we have to do. And that requires everybody to accept that and to pay it forward and to tell other people that same thing. And then to share what they have gained out of something, whether that's from their own struggles or from some other mentoring that they've had that's helped them learn. If we pay it forward, if we pass that on to other people, then we won't, you know, those people that come behind us don't have to fight quite so hard and struggle in the same way. I remember for an interview, it was actually for one of the award systems a year or so ago, and the last question they asked me was about, you know, if I was faced with a young woman today asking for career advice, you know, what would be kind of the one thing that I would tell them, sort of thing. And it was like, basically, you know, the only thing I say is, you know, be good at what you do and strive to be good at what you do and do your best. And I said to them at this interview, I said, and it's the exact same thing I'd tell a young man to do. You shouldn't have to do anything other than strive to do your best and learn your competence and your skill. You shouldn't have to do more. And I still hear lots of people saying, oh, you know, if you really want to make it as a woman, you must work twice as hard. It's like, no, forget that. It's up to the likes of me to make sure that that's not what you have to do. It should be a level playing field. We're not trying to get one up. We're not trying to put anybody down. We just want, it's a level playing field. So it is about making sure people understand that, you know, you pay it forward, start to teach people the things you know, but make sure you pass on that message. Don't ever tell anybody they need to work twice as hard to make it. If that's the case, we need to work twice as hard to stop that being the norm. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And I think I was going to come on to sort of top tips, but we've already got some questions coming in already, which is fantastic, which I love. Trin, I'll come to you in a second, but first, Dr. Joanna, our lovely Joanna over in Durham. Is it snowy, Joanna?
It was. It's not anymore. But my dog, who is quite small, has had very chilly bits for quite a few walks. He's not a happy animal. He's really not a happy animal.
What's the breed of dog? It must be a low dog.
He's a Bolognese. He's from Bologna. He's Italian, and he doesn't do snow at all.
Sounds a bit like my husband. He's very small as well.
I bet his bits don't hang in the snow though.
Trust me, he's very small.
I think there's a whole other webinar on that, but we'll concentrate on. So, Joanna, you were talking about a conversation that you're having with your mentee about and top tips coming up to our annual review.
Yeah, I hate annual reviews. I think they're pointless. If something needs saying, I think it should be said when it needs to be said, to be perfectly frank. But for those companies that still need to tick that box, my lovely mentee, who, as I think I said in the question, is an inspiration to me as much as I hope I'm helpful to her, has got one coming up this week. And I was just wondering what top tips you might have, Debbie. My perspective is you take the game to them. Your annual review is as much a chance for you to make sure that you're in the right place as it is for your company to make sure you're doing the right thing for them. But then you can't be too strident, dare I say. You've got to accept the fact that you're already at a bit of a disadvantage being a female, particularly for this young lady, in a largely male working environment, sports related working environment. So lots of blokes, lots of ego, lots of testosterone flying around. So yeah, your views and those of anybody else on the call would be appreciated.
Okay, so well, thanks for that. I'm with you. I'm not really a big fan of annual reviews anymore. And I don't know whether you've seen it, Marcus Buckingham wrote with the 9 lines of work, and one of them is about, giving feedback, like, not a good thing. And actually it is, who said, because in reality, and it's definitely worth the read of the book, and it's definitely worth the read of that chapter about the 9 lines of work on this giving feedback. And it looks at this whole issue around annual reviews. And what supposedly makes you qualified to do an annual review on somebody, even if it's somebody who's worked for you all year. And the reality is the best person to do a review of somebody's performance is themselves. So I think in terms of looking at how you approach that review, I would be more inclined, and I've started to do it far more in my working life, more inclined to look at annual reviews as a coaching session, not even a mentoring session, as that coaching session, to really just sit down and go through how do you think you did? Talk to me about how you think you did, and take the cues from them. And from those cues, go into, well, what does that mean for looking forward to next year? And how is it that you want the support from me for it? Because like you say, an annual review, it's no use to you, is it, if you've already messed it up? So you need continual feedback between you and your staff about how things are going and what's going well and what's not going well. And really the annual review is more about their chance to reflect on the year, tell me what they need from you going forward, and think about what they're going to do about that from a development point of view next year. And everybody will get far more out of that than did you do X number of spreadsheets over so many months? Or this is how well did you work as a team? How can you as a manager actually make that judgment? How often did you see them in that team environment? How often did you see them in that project meeting that was held? A lot of the time you won't have. So it's got to be a self-reflection piece for me.
Accepting that point, if you were the person being reviewed and you were relatively young and keen, ambitious, and has already proven yourself with lots and lots of fabulous flags to fly, how do you take that into a PDR without coming across as aggressive or difficult?
Because you mean the individual going in?
The individual being reviewed, yeah.
So as the individual being reviewed, you mean how do you go in and not look too confident almost, or?
Well, for somebody who's just pulled in 1.6 million quid for the company and another huge multi-million-pound deal in the space of the first 5 working days of the year, I think this particular young lady has quite a lot to shout about. But equally, you don't want to put people's nose out of joint, and there's still a ladder to climb. So there's an attitude, I guess, that's important, and this is probably not going to be face-to-face, which doesn't help.
Yeah, sure.
But I'm just interested to know, what would you as a manager, for example, how would you want to hear that sort of news couched? Is it, look what I did? Are you just interested in what's being done? Or is it, I've done this, but I could have done that if I had X, Y, and Z? How do you take some really positive stuff and turn it into a development opportunity?
So I certainly think for the positive stuff, it needs to be, for me, it would need to be not the latter. You said, you know, I have done this, look what I've done, or I have done this, but I could have done that. I wouldn't put the button in it. That detracts from that amazing achievement. So, and it's interesting, if you know, if I had an employee who's done something like that, and they didn't come in and talk about it in the review, I would be trying to work with them to figure out why they're not talking about it, because they deserve to be talking about it. And this thing we have about, you know, well, that's bragging, or that's this, it's like, that's daft. One of the things we need to do as women particularly is be more positive and more vocal about the things that we do and achieve. Now, it's great because we all do that for each other, okay, which is all great. But the thing is, we also need to do it for ourselves. This is exactly why women don't apply for jobs when they only meet 80% of the criteria, whereas your bloke will apply if he meets 50%, right? And that's the fact. They've researched it. Because he fancies the job. It's like, well, I can do half of it and I'm sure I can learn the rest. And he's right, he probably can. But for a woman, it's like, well, I can't do 20% of it, I won't apply. This is exactly why, because we don't own our skills or own our achievements and say, this is what we've done. And I just, as the recent recipient of an OBE, I really do understand that feeling about it. But And I like a lot of these things. We're often better with the people we talk to and work with than we are with ourselves. So I would certainly, if I knew I had somebody in my team who had made those types of achievements and they didn't bring those out in that review and understand what that means for them and how great an achievement is, then I would be looking to bring those out. And it's down to us to change other people's thinking and behaviors that view anybody who's sitting there viewing that as a bragging or as a boasting or as being overconfident. We need to be working with them people to say, actually, you know, that's not what this is, and try and do it that way. Does that answer your question?
I think it does, yes. And I think from my mentee's perspective, it'll give her some food for thought going into the session on Thursday as well, so on Friday or whenever it is. So thank you very much. Any other comments anyone else has put into the chat function? I know that they'll be taken on board as well. So thank you very much indeed. It's much appreciated.
Well, thanks, Joanna. And we'll put, because I can see there's an awful lot of responses in here. So, you know, there's an opportunity from Jane to gather up your own successes, ask questions about what support exists from the organisation perspective for what's next, particularly useful if there isn't an ongoing conversation. So I think there's all manner, we'll take that feedback and we'll put that into the follow-up, won't we, Emma, she says, hopefully. I'm going to throw in just a question, you know, I want to kind of focus any other sort of top tips as well. I've got where's one here from Michelle. Question for Debbie: do you have mentors from a younger demographic early in career? Reason I ask is that a 20-year-old mentee, I'm 51, is helping me with all sorts of stuff, namely TikTok for business. So it's that reverse mentorship, isn't it? Have you had that experience, Debbie?
Yeah, so apart from my son, who constantly thinks he's mentoring me on technology as well, because he's 20 years old, although secretly I do think I probably know more than he does, but it's not true. I like to just tell myself that. Yeah, I have. I mean, I have a couple of people, and often they come along in different parts of my life as well. So, for example, I took up volunteering. Now, I've done all sorts of volunteering, but I took up overseas volunteering 2 years ago. Obviously, last year it got scuppered, but I'm already booked for November for my next trip. And I went with a company called GVI, and when I came back, I agreed to become an ambassador. And the girl in this country who runs the ambassador program, Brooklyn, I'm not sure how old she is, but she's young. She's amazing. Every time I speak to her or deal with her, and it's reasonably frequently because I do quite a bit of work for GVI one way or another, she just inspires me. She is so positive in her outlook about everything and so committed to change and to making things different that she's completely inspiring. So whenever I get onto the topics of what I'm looking to do volunteering wise and how I feel about environmental issues and things, she's the person I kind of turn to because she's so knowledgeable on it. She's committed, she's inspiring, she's amazing to talk to. So she's a really classic example of one of the people that's younger. But yeah, I think from a the other thing I've found, you know, and older people, well, you know, like myself, I'm almost spring chicken really, but older people like myself, we really do need to think about things like the innovation and technology, because that is a place we can learn. As you get older, you don't lose your imagination, but your imagination does seem to go a little. And I think I've figured out it's because you've got so many experiences, so many things that go wrong. You stop imagining what could be because you think you already know it can't happen. And to be fair, you know, you might have tried something 20 years ago and it didn't happen, but that's because it was 20 years ago and there was a whole load of different things in place 20 years ago. That doesn't mean the same idea today won't work. The problem is you don't think about them the same way anymore as you get older. So to an extent, your imagination is bound by your experience as the older you get. When you're younger, of course, we all know just from very young children, I work with schools and things as well, that imagination knows no bounds. There isn't anything that can't be done. So surrounding ourselves with younger people and making sure that we figure out how to listen to them properly and understand them and ask them to be part of our thinking is crucial, because unfortunately, to say, we are, you know, yeah, we have all this experience, but we're bounded by it, unfortunately. So we're not as innovative in the same way. And again, this is generalist. We know there's some mega innovative people who are old, etc. So I'm not talking about specifics. I'm talking about in general. So for younger people, I always love talking to younger people and trying to get them more involved in my thinking. And I have a few who certainly helped me when I began looking at my own business, that I certainly asked to take a look at my website and to just give me feedback, not to do it for me. I've learned how to make my website, but I wanted to know what they thought, looking at it from their perspective, because it's a very different view to ours. So yeah, I think there's as much to be, with mentors and mentoring, there's as much to be learned as there is to teach, basically, no matter who. And certainly younger people can definitely teach some of us older ones a lot.
Well, a few weeks ago, or it wasn't a few weeks, it was before Christmas, wasn't it? And you got involved in our first virtual carousel mentoring event out in Warrington. It was total chaos. You know, it's technology, young people, you know, socially distanced, all this kind of stuff. We had 160 year 10s. And I remember hearing your conversation with you, and it was all around, is that how much a train driver gets paid? You know, it's like there's this whole, I think you're right. There is absolutely something, and we've really, you kind of, sort of, we've put more things out there. You know, I'm mentoring has always been something that has been really a massive passion of mine, but it's doing it in different ways. It's doing it whether we've got a peer-to-peer mentoring group at the moment, which Alex on this call is running out in Lancashire. We did one earlier this year. We're doing something with the Black United Representation Network about reverse mentoring with young Black, Asian, minority, ethnic young people, future talent with senior leaders. So there's different ways to engage and to learn and to pass those skills on. But Michelle, I need to know, how is your TikTok for business? Have you benefited?
Yeah, I mean, it's been very difficult to get my head around, and I've got 2 teenage boys who are absolutely appalled that I'm on it now. But I'm not on it as me, which is kind of a bit of a cop-out. I'm on it as the business. And I've posted 6 videos and I think I've got about 5 followers, but I'm really just learning how to sort of take music, understand what's trending. It's a completely different ballgame for me. So yeah, I'm hoping to grow my business audience through TikTok, but we'll see. It's an experiment for now.
Well, I think you should be dropping one of those TikTok videos into this chat and we can all judge. But this is in essence what I've always been passionate about, these mentoring relationships, is you've got the relationship with your mentor or mentee where you both learn, but equally you can all learn from each other in this group. And I know we're not all together, but you know, 70, 80 people have been on this call today. So if there's something that you need or want, then drop it in there, because it is much about that peer-to-peer environment as well. I'm gonna throw, because we're getting absolutely tons of questions, so I don't want to miss out on Major Helen de Montes. She's asked, what do you think are the most, what are the main levers over time to change the culture of being more receptive to female leaders?
Gosh, the main levers. So I think this is a really tricky one. I've been aware over the last couple of years. Apologies if you can hear my dog going mental in the back. I've closed as many doors as I can to stop her, but until my husband decides to get up and do something with her, you're gonna have to just listen to her barking in the background. It's clearly someone at the door or something. So I think the main levers, it's really difficult. I've been really conscious about us being careful about not isolating men from the conversation, or even not deriding, but even also diminishing, that's the right word, diminishing the contribution they've made. Okay, I don't think anybody set out over the last however many decades at this, I mean, maybe 100 years ago they set out to say, well, women stay down there and men stay there, but ever since in the decades that we all know, I don't think anybody consciously set out to make sure that women were kept down. We know there's a few, again, it's generalist, there's always a few plant pots about who you could say that of, but generally speaking, I don't think anybody consciously set out to do it. So I think men have done a lot of what we expected them to do as well, in the way that they've lived their lives. So I think the levers is about really trying to understand as a female leader, about not diminishing the contribution that men have made over the last 50 years and 60 years to everything that we have and that we've achieved in this economy, but to try and have the conversations with them about what it means to be more inclusive across the board, and obviously particularly for this group from a gender inclusivity perspective. So it's like anything, conversation and talking to people is the key lever that you have for this. And I think the other thing we've got to remember is we need to make sure as female leaders that we are really tolerant, because we've got a whole group of men out there at the moment that don't know what to do. They don't know what's right and what's not right. And there's lots of us feeling the same way when we think about the BAME community and how we're supposed to talk or interact around the BAME community. There's lots of these things. Well, the same thing happens with gender. So we've got a load of guys out there currently who don't know what would be right and what wouldn't be. So we have to remember to be really tolerant and generally accept that people are probably not doing this in purpose, and you need to try and talk something through. You need to be gentle in the approach and explain why something may not be right or may be right. And that's, that really is the only lever we've got. We've also got each other to keep promoting each other to make sure that we keep achieving that equality that we're trying to aim for. But the biggest lever we've got is our communication skills, and as women, our ability to be non-aggressive, mostly, again, must be general, but to be non-aggressive and to be tolerant, and to remember to always look at it from their point of view as well and where they might be coming from. And that's how we'll get this agenda to keep growing and to keep moving on. I certainly hope anyway.
Absolutely. And I think we've always, Northern Power Women has always been all genders, massively important. Couldn't be doing what I do now without Northern Power Man. And right in those early days, it was about growing the advocates, growing those advocates, those allies. You need that, everyone needs to be part of this conversation for change, right? Got some more quick fire ones. So I'm going to throw two. And from Trin, we've got, tell us a little bit about your portfolio career and what does that look like for you? And also from Radhika, Debbie, want to hear about your marathon and high altitude hiking experience. So portfolio and portfolio extreme adventuring.
Portfolio. So I started off, realised I probably wanted to have a portfolio career much longer term. So I went off to try and find a non-executive director role. I have always been involved volunteering wise. So I've done lots of different things and been involved with schools for quite a long time. But I also then a number of years ago became a non-executive director for the NHS. That's a really hard one to do, and in fact I'm finishing that current one soon. It's a very, very difficult one to do because they do require a lot of time, and with the new job and the other aspects of the portfolio career, it's not as easy for me to do an NHS one. But the NHS one is very, very good. The NHS run some really good governance around how they operate. So in terms of establishing your NED career, really learning what it's about and how you be a non-executive director rather than an executive director, because it's very different, and sort of teaching yourself how to do that. The NHS are really great, and their governance is actually surprisingly exceptional. So I've done that for a number of years, but more recently I've landed another few. So, some of them are around the things that I'm passionate about. So I managed to get myself on the Mayoral Development Corporation in Stockport, which is looking at the whole regeneration of Stockport Town West. And that's absolutely fantastic. And I get to kind of be the lead in the non-executive side on the rail station piece that's being developed. And obviously I'm a bit of a rail geek, so that works for me. But I also started on the 1st January one as Harwich Haven Authority Chair. And again, it's kind of got a link with rail and things, but it's a really interesting thing. I think you learn so much as a NED. It's very interesting because you get to deal with different businesses, but it's a different view that you take as a non-executive director, and you look at it from a different angle, but it is really challenging and interesting. And I've got to admit, so far, the things that I'm involved in, I absolutely love. And some of the stuff is voluntary. Although today, I've got nothing but a headache on my hands, because in June, I agreed to take on voluntary chair of an academy in Cumbria that had a lot of problems. They cleared out all of their previous governing body, brought an entirely new governing body, but it was because they just had a report or a visit by the ESFA, and they had a draft financial management and governance report that was awful, etc. So I agreed to be over chair. So there's moments like today when I've had my head in the hands this morning saying, why on earth did I agree to do this? Because I've now got the press all over me, because the report was published eventually on Friday. And of course, it's not very complimentary about the teaching's great, but it's not very complimentary about the governance in the school, etc. And the letter from the SFA makes it clear it's not the new governing body, but nonetheless, you take the impact of it, no matter what. It's like all of these things. So yeah, I've had a head and hands moment this morning when I said, why did I agree to do that? Because in all honesty, it's been the most time consuming thing I have done since June, being chair of this small primary school in Cumbria, basically. It's been the most time consuming thing I've done. So I think you've got to be a bit careful what you pick up, but it is about, can you help? And I agreed to do it because I have quite a lot of experience of schools and academies, and I felt that I could help straighten out the issues that the school had. But you do need to be a little bit careful, because there are occasions when you might regret the decision you make. So, and then on the second one, volunteer adventuring, as Simone called it at the beginning. So I started adventuring a number of years ago. I had a bit of a coming up to 40 moments and decided I need to get my butt off the couch. And I took up what I call adventuring. And I started off, but looking back on it, I would call it starting off small, but that's probably not the correct phrase to use. But I started off small. I checked up Kilimanjaro. I did another mountain first, and on the same trip, I went up Mount Meru and then Kilimanjaro, which at the time I would have never said was starting small, but given everything I've done since, it was. And then since then, I've done three marathons. I've done the London Marathon 3 times. Done a few half marathons and things. I took up rock climbing. I took up winter mountaineering in Scotland. That's the toughest thing I ever did. Actually, it's really tough going. And then I took up alpine mountaineering, which was amazing, and went up Mont Blanc and things. And then I was looking for something new to do. So I decided to take part in the Clipper Round the World Yacht Race, which is an amateur yacht race. Never sailed in my life. Turns out I get really seasick as well. Like really seasick. It's not good. And I sailed from Australia to China for 2.5 months on the Clipper race. And then Simone mentioned before about this being the best you can. Adventuring is probably what really eventually gave me real confidence. And I did a number of challenges. It was really hard, and at times I thought I couldn't go on. And when you do go on, you finally get this realization mentally that actually it is just in your head. Okay, your body can do way, way more than anybody generally thinks, way more, provided your head can stay in the game. And I slowly began to realize that as I went through different adventures. And I wasn't always, when I was adventuring, I suppose what you could call the best version of myself. I was probably not ideal person to be around on some days during my adventuring, etc. So I kept adventuring because I kept wanting to not just achieve the task I'd set out to achieve, which did give me confidence in understanding how much is in your mental drive. But I also wanted to do one of these things while I was being the best version of myself I could. So that's why I just kept looking for bigger and bigger things to do. So when I finally went on the Clipper race, again, it was with that striving to say, can I do this? Which was different from the mountaineering. The mountaineering is much shorter. This was an enduro to a great extent. Can I do this and be the best version of myself? And that's what I've been constantly striving for. So when I came back from the Clipper race, I was the best version of myself. Everybody that I joined as the crew and the team hopefully would say a very similar thing. They didn't necessarily know me before, but I certainly wasn't a difficult person to be with. I managed to create some great feeling on the team and the crew when spirits were down. I completely got everybody totally really excited about food and things just from doing simple things like actually making pudding. Trust me, it's a lot harder than it sounds on a 70-foot yacht in the middle of an ocean at 45 degrees. So when I came back, I was then looking for something different. So I still intend to do some adventuring, but I'm looking for different stuff. So that was why I took up overseas volunteering, and I went and did a women's empowerment program in India, which was amazing. And I'm teaching English, which is a bit of a joke because I'm a Scouser. I'm teaching English to novice monks. I'm allowed to say that because I'm a Scouser. I'm teaching English to novice monks in Laos in November. So I've started focusing my efforts around those things, which is still an adventure. It's just a little bit of a different adventure.
Wow. Well, actually, Charlotte has put in there, I am remarkable workshops are fab for things like blowing up your own trumpet. And also Charlotte is a facilitator. Also Karen over in Perth and also in Orange has actually posted, we'll put all this in the LinkedIn group actually, has put something, yeah, you can post and yes, you can do things without being egotistical. But the last line of it is you have done fantastic, celebrate and reflect on it with those that are around you, you know, so there's so much so is that high-fiving. And so one of the things for me is when I was gathering everyone to come together to start getting matched for the mentor match, and I approached a senior finance person because of somebody who just needed specific skills, and she went, oh, no, I've never mentored. And this is someone who is exactly, you know, multi-board positions, very senior, but had never mentored. And I felt with her, it's almost gone too far and it's too late to go back. And I'm like, no, never too late. She's not on this program, but we'll just want to get involved in the future. But what would you say to someone like that? Whether or not it's someone a senior position, whether or not it's somebody that from this every mentee, we want to start mentoring. How do we sort of get people to sort of get through that, oh, I can't, or I don't know how to?
Yeah, well, I mean, in mentoring, you know, it's one of the things, I suppose, talk to people about the fact that mentoring is a lot more straightforward in some ways than coaching, because mentoring is about sharing your experiences. So yes, you need to remember to listen up, but it is also about sharing back. Coaching can be far harder. If you've got years and years of experience and you sit and having that coaching conversation, it's really hard to quell what you know and just listen neutrally for that person to come to their answer. It can be really hard to do, but mentoring's not like that. Mentoring is a conversation. So I think some of it is to make sure, talk to people about what mentoring really is, get them, anybody who says, you know, they don't think they can, get them to talk to a mentor who's relatively straightforward to get that explanation from them. And just to remember to put it forward to people about their own development. So most people in senior positions, particularly women, and I will say particularly women because that's been my experience, really do want to just keep developing and learning. So one of the other ways to persuade them is to talk to them about the development that they get from it. There isn't, you know, it's not like there's these huge expectations on these relationships. You all get a chance to speak to each other and, you know, figure out whether you're a good fit. It is about a conversation. And from a development point of view, as a senior leader, you can get as much, not only as we talked about previous, you know, sometimes that conversation, I've had those conversations switched around where they've ended up giving me more information because of something that's going on than you've been passing back. So it's a development opportunity for everybody, not just the supposed mentee in it versus the mentor. So that's the only thing I say about trying to persuade people to do it. It's like and some of the people I've mentored in the past, are now really good friends. So, you know, Anita, for example, I mentored her years ago on a mentoring program done through Women in Rail. She worked for the RSSB at the time. And we became friends. She ended up taking a 3-month sabbatical to go and actually explore India, which is where she's not from, but her family were, and she did that. And she's coming to Blau to teach. Well, she's not coming to teach the novice monk. She's doing a women's empowerment program in November. She and I have been holidays together. So you can get lifelong friendships and things out of these as well. It's not, the thing about it is not to try and put it into that teeny box to say it's just that, because it can be just that, but it could also end up being so much more as well.
Absolutely, could agree more. And actually Charlotte's just added in, you know, she's fairly new in her career, but has been a mentor for students at the University of Hull for the past 4. Even without lots of professional experience behind you, you can still give so much and make a difference to others. We, you know,
yeah, and people particularly, I know, you know, for my son who's currently at university, him and his friends, so his girlfriends that are in the house that he's at campus, they've got real worries about, you know, what it's like when they get out into work. And I can talk to them about it to one point, but that's not the same for them. Actually, you know, somebody that's only just got out there and been maybe a year or 2 into their graduate program or whatever it is, those are the great people to go and speak to those students about what to really expect and what it's really like. And again, you know, I can go what I think it's like, but I'm not a graduate student in the company anymore, am I? I'm 40 years down my career. So I don't really know what it's like. So there's always people who can teach people things all the way along the career path.
And I'm going to sort of gear up for the last question because I'm conscious of time. I think we have just started a take up campaign. You know, in the new year, everyone gives up stuff, and we've been like, no, we're going to take up. So I'm going to come to you in a bit about what you're taking up, because obviously you've got bags of time on your hand, Debs. But I'm going to give a bit of a shout out because we've got some great examples coming up. So Jan Brown, the wonderful Jan Brown at Liverpool John Moores University, we've been working with, and we've actually created a carousel networking event. So not necessarily mentoring, but carousel networking program, which we're doing on the 25th of January virtually. Please sign up for that, because again, it's to exactly your point, Debs. It's like, you know we've got students all over at the moment, all kind of worrying and fretting about, they're here doing the learning and the virtual learning, but actually how are we having conversations with other human and other human, you know, with other business people? So we're running a session there. And then equally, we've just announced today, or we'll be announcing today, 8th of March will be our rescheduled reimagined Northern Power Women Awards 2020, but we're also doing an event in the day, and we're doing a giant carousel networking event for early careers professionals, but also a giant carousel mentoring event for university students as well. So again, this is about us all. It's that pay it forward, give back, isn't it? It's so important, and your experience, regardless of where you are on your journey, is valuable to someone else. So that's our shout out for that. We'll put it in the group afterwards. Oh, Philly's already shared it on here as well. So that's fantastic. Thank you. But the whole aim of the International Women's Day one is you know, the Women Fest that you were involved in last year, Debs, they're going to come under the same umbrella. Let's collaborate. Let's come together. Let's create a real northern. And Karen in Perth, you're also welcome, obviously, as you know. But yeah, just get involved. Let's make a really positive, impactful noise. And I want this to be very much around a pay it forward. So what are you going to take up? Like I say, not much time on your hands, you know. So.
Well, actually, it's because of that. The thing that I'm going to take up is what I'm going to take up. I hope it counts as a take up. I am going to take up, interestingly, what they call more mindful living. So it's all around the self-care. You know, I've done self-care over the last few years, quite a lot, you know, and I understand, you know, how doing certain things around, whether it be the way that I look after my body or the way that I interact with people, how it can help. But it's always, what's happened is, it still tends to be a little bit sporadic, and then in between things fall apart a bit, and I can get anxious because then I think I'm not in control the same way. So I've decided to look at mindful living more as a whole approach to the way that I work and live, sort of thing. And basically I'm going to try and adopt some of that more mindful approach consistently to the way that I do things going forward, and I'll let you know at the end of the year whether it works for me or not, and helps me achieve.
Well, do you know, that's what I was going to say. I'd love to kind of follow on that. I think we've got a great woman who works with us, Gina. We can sort of think if we can grab a few sort of at start of a blog and follow you through the year, I think would be amazing, because that's all, if you like, part of following on. One of the questions I think Hannah put in here, Hannah Smith, around pay review, pay negotiation, we'll put it in the WhatsApp group, in the LinkedIn group. And if Debs has got any other sort of top tips for pay reviews and stuff, we'll pass that on. But thank you, everyone. I can't believe, Debs, we've run out of time. I wasn't surprised, because I knew there was a lot to get through today. Thank you for your time. Congratulations on your OBE. Congratulations, so well deserved. I'm always chuffed every year when I see fantastic people receiving honours that are just so well deserved. Thanks everyone, thanks all of you for taking your Monday lunchtime to join in the conversation today. Really appreciate it. Keep the conversation going. Remember, you're here to help each other as well. You can support each other as well. I think that's definitely one of the things today. We can mentor and learn in different ways, can't we, Debs?
We can. Can I also just say, if anybody, I don't know about the LinkedIn group, so Simone will give you the information on that, but if anybody wants to reach out to me at any point with any follow-up from this as well, and are comfortable that I also share that back with Simone, you can reach me on Debbie Francis 1966, that gives the game away, at gmail.com. But it was a good year.
Absolutely. It's a vintage year, Debs, actually, I think.
Yeah, Debbie Francis 1966 at gmail.com. So you can reach me on that as well if anybody at all wants to reach me on anything today. And then obviously not to cut over the feedback that Simone might want to do. So we'll share that as well in some shape or form.
Thank you, really appreciate that. That's really generous of you. Thank you, Debbie, and thank all of you for giving your time up today, for supporting each other, and for being here. Great to see you, and we will see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
I love a final wave.